And welcome to the Tuesday, May 9th, 2017 regular scheduled council meeting for the city of Wixom. Please stand and we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The roll call, please.
Mayor Hinckley is excused. Deputy Mayor Ziegler.
Here.
Councilmember Beagle.
Here.
Councilmember Gatchell.
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Resnick.
Here.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. I guess I think it's the appropriate thing to do to let everybody know that we have our meeting this evening being recorded by Walled Lake TV, and so I just think it's important for people who want to perhaps speak to the public, call the public that they're aware of that. So, and thanks a lot for you guys showing up tonight and helping us out and recording. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I do not, Deputy Mayor Ziegler. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Anybody up here would like to? Yes.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gatchell.
Thank you. I would like to add new business number 5 as a discussion and a proposal regarding city manager and city clerk annual reviews. And also move correspondence number 4 to new business number 6, please. It is the memo regarding video recordings.
That's number 6. We can do that. That's under correspondence. Okay. Anybody else have any changes or additions? Okay. Moving right along, we have a presentation this evening, and it's a proclamation honoring Marine Lance Corporal Justin M. Ellsworth. We got these in our packet. We've read them. Representing the Ellsworth family this evening is John Ellsworth, who most of us know from around the city, and his wife Debbie and daughter Jessica. It's my understanding that the way this came about was the Historical Society took a lead in this and worked this out. And so what I was wondering is if the Historical Society, they're represented tonight by the president, Lori Dorchek, and Nancy Dingleday, who is, are you the vice president, Nancy? Or what is your?
Whatever.
She's the whatever of the Historical Society. So I wonder if you'd like to come up and maybe have a little discussion as to how this all came about before we read the proclamation.
A while back, I visited the Michigan Military Museum up in Frankenmuth with my family, and I noticed there was a display there for a local resident, Lance Corporal Justin Ellsworth. So I looked at it closely, and I was amazed at the contributions that he had given to our country and what an American hero he was. I came back and discussed it with the Historical Society, and we started doing some research about him. Well, we became aware that the memorial for those who had given their lives in service to our country did not have his name, and we were quite surprised about that. So we, during a meeting, spoke with our city manager, Clarence Goodline, and he said that we should write that immediately. So he took the initiative to begin the signage, and we took the initiative to begin a ceremony honoring Lance Corporal Justin Ellsworth. We are happy to say that the VFW quickly became involved and asked if they could help us. We also heard from the village of Wolverine Lake, who said that they would very much like to participate. This has been a huge community endeavor. I have never seen anything similar, to see such involvement from so many different people, from government officials to schools to our seniors, because of the magnitude of his contribution. So we were very happy to be involved with this and are very proud to say that he is our hometown's hero. There will be a ceremony that is now just about ready on May 28th at 2 p.m. in front of City Hall. And at this point, I would like to cordially invite all members of our City Council, as well as all the members of the community, to please join us in honoring him as he so much deserves.
She said it fine.
Nancy? You have to say something, Nancy. No? Okay,
I'm in.
all right, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd ask the Ellsworth family to come up and receive the proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas there can be no greater demonstration of patriotism and love of one's country than through the loss of one's life in defense of it and its principles, as well as one's comrades. And whereas Marine Lance Corporal Justin M. Ellsworth unselfishly sacrificed his own life during combat in the defense of his comrades, his country, and his country's principles on November 13, 2004. And whereas the people of the city of Wixom shall be forever grateful for Marine Lance Corporal Ellsworth's heroic and selfless actions that resulted in his loss of life and the protection of 15 nearby Marines from harm and loss of life. And whereas none of us shall ever forget Marine Lance Corporal Ellsworth's courage and commitment to his comrades and his country. And whereas it is fitting that those who lose their life in defense of their country and comrades receive honor and tribute for their actions and the sacrifice of their lives. Now, therefore, the mayor and the city council hereby proclaim that May 28, 2017 shall be known and celebrated as Marine Lance Corporal Justin M. Ellsworth Day, and that this proclamation serves as honor, tribute, and notice to all of his heroism, courage, self-sacrifice, and commitment to the virtues of duty and honor and loyalty and selflessness. I guess the only thing that I would add is I'm sorry that we didn't do something a long time ago, but I'm glad that we finally corrected that and look forward to the 28th. Thank you. Next on the agenda is another presentation, and this one is a BPI quarterly report, January of 2017 through March of 2017.
City Council, thanks for welcoming me back. It's been about 3 months since our last visit. And since then, we've done a number of different things. We've done the day-to-day care and maintenance of the information systems. We've also embarked on a number of projects that I wanted to give you an update on this evening. So the first part, the day-to-day maintenance of the information systems, each month I provide a detailed report of all the different services that we provide to maintain the systems. But with the quarterly report, what I'd like to do is present you with some feedback from the city's staff on the quality of service. So what we've done is when we took over the maintenance here, we put together a ticketing system. So every time we're asked for service, we enter a ticket into the system. And we complete the work, we document what was done, and when we close that ticket, an email is automatically sent to the person that requested the service. Within that email is a short survey. We ask 5 questions. And we also ask for comments, feedback, good or bad, but we kind of live by the motto that feedback's the roughest champion. And if we get some attaboys doing a great job, that's always nice to hear, but we like to know if we should have done something different. So in your packet this evening, you'll find a consolidated report of those 5 questions that were asked, and then the comments that were left with the survey. So you'll be able to see that we're getting high marks for the service we're providing. So I would, with that, I'd open it up to any questions or comments on that first part of the report.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, I think Will is doing a great job and being very responsive. It's, I think that's evident from this. I have a few general questions as you get further into the report. I don't know, are you going to present anything else?
Yes, the second piece that I'm going to present is project status.
Yep, okay.
So that
I'll
might
have
be a
some
good
questions
time
then.
for that.
I'm similar.
Okay. All right, please
The-
continue.
Thank you. The second part of the report is project status. So we can go over that. We've got a number of projects that are outstanding right now. And what I asked our project manager to do was to give me a summary of the status and major activities of each of the projects. So what you have in your packet are titles of each of the projects, and some of the major activities that have taken place to take care of those projects. So the Ethernet cabling, I'm going to address that in another new business item later this evening. So I would suggest any questions we hold off for that. Telephone system, at the last city council meeting, I presented to award that contract to Ultronics. They've accepted the sales agreement, we're finalizing the PO, and everything is on schedule for that project. The email system, we're completing the final testing for that, and that's scheduled to migrate on Memorial Day weekend. We will go from the existing email system to the new email system. And then the last project that I've got itemized on here is the final migration from one of the legacy file servers for general file storage will take place later this month, and we'll decommission that file server, and that data will then reside on a new file server. So those are the highlighted projects, and I would invite you to address any questions at this point.
Mr. Resnick?
Yes, with a lot more emphasis daily in the newspaper on these phishing scams, mail scams, and malicious attacks on servers, how are we doing at educating all the employees on the do's and don'ts of opening attachments and when something looks suspicious? Are people starting to send those to you now?
Well, yes. We're getting individuals asking us that when they see something suspicious, sometimes it's obvious. If it's a Nigerian prince asking about investments in your community, you know that it's a phishing. However, if you get an email that looks like it's from your bank informing you need to log in and reset your password, those are really questionable. If you've got a lot of experience working in IT, it's very obvious. But if you don't, you may not feel confident about deleting it or following the instructions. At that point, all the staff are instructed to contact the technology department. We'll stand over their shoulder and help them review it, and then show them how they can verify if this is legitimate or not.
Has anybody inadvertently opened something they shouldn't have recently? Because there's been a lot of very high-profile ones.
I haven't seen any yet. Now, one of the good things is we're filtering all of our emails. So as soon as a signature on an email is recognized as illegitimate spam, it gets flagged at our email filter and then prevented from coming into the email system.
There's always that first time though, so we just gotta make sure that everybody's
And
educated.
once they're past the garden gate, it's a lot more work to resolve it after it comes into the system. You'd much rather prevent it from getting here in the first place.
Mr. Resnick, if I might comment relative to that, I know that the system is pretty effective because this past weekend, I tried to send 2 documents that I had scanned from a mobile application to my desktop here, and they both went to the Barracuda spam catcher, and I had to retrieve them with IT this morning. So I mean, it's and to my estimation, it's working pretty well, and it's working as they had designed it, because it's supposed to do that.
Mr. Spider?
Thank you, sir. Hi, Mr. Blackburn. Thanks for coming. There's a lot of important pieces that are getting close to completion. I'm just wondering what's next. Are we going to be in good shape and just need maintenance, or what's coming up that needs to be done next?
Out on the horizon, I see a couple things. Within the budget, we put in an item for a true backup system. So what we want to do is consolidate all the backup to a piece of equipment and some software that will be able to manage replication of the data, and if something should fail, we'll be able to recover from that in a timely fashion.
Is it
So
redundancy, or
there is an element of redundancy.
right now there is none? I mean, we have a backup.
Yes, we're copying data is what we're doing. So we do have a backup, but if there is a failure, the return to operation is not a graceful process.
Okay.
And so we want to have some equipment and software in place, so what we can do is we can test that process. So not only are we backing up the system, but periodically what we'll do is we'll restore a file to make sure that that process is a tested process. Then we'll restore a server to a temporary area to make sure that's a tested process. So then what we do is we have a disaster recovery process in place that's tested.
Okay.
So-
Well, and this is a question. I'll phrase it as a statement, see if it's right. We have a backup and we can restore from it in a disaster, but it would be arduous and time consuming, and that doesn't work. We need things faster, and that's what's next to make that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
that is a very accurate statement.
Oh, thank you. Was that it? Was there anything
No, there's
else?
one other,
Yeah,
and currently we have a document imaging system that's very underutilized. It's very important to the departments that are using it, but it's very underutilized and it's not configured correctly. So summer, fall project is going to be to design how that database is saved on the information system, on the core database server, and then find out where we can better utilize this system that's already in place to help the other departments that need to do document management. So those are the kind of second half of the year projects.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Mr. Gassion?
Thank you. Under the report on current projects for Ethernet cabling, I know that there's a recommendation we delay making a selection on that RFP until next month. Is there anything, or any benefit gained or cost savings? But I know later on in this meeting, we're voting on another project for cable replacement. Is it the same thing or different?
It is the same project.
Okay.
And the project plan is to award the contract based on our evaluation in the RFP process and complete that work the last, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks in June.
Okay.
So, and then that project will be,
Okay, so kind of bumping it up.
yeah. And I can address details of that later in the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. It just, I saw that there was a recommendation for one project to delay, and then later today, we're voting on a proposal, so I wasn't sure if it was the same or different or what we have. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Blackburn. As Councilman Resnick had mentioned, some of the stuff here, it's a matter, and you called it the garden gate. Once everybody gets, if they get past the garden gate, it's a problem. What is the program, or are we going to put programs in place to make sure everyone who's using this system is trained and on an annual basis and is verified that they've gone through a training procedure?
There hasn't been a regimented training process put in place. That's something that would need to be brought to the technology department and looked at to see if that would be beneficial for the staff. But we're very big on continuing education, how to use the system, because frankly, if the staff become our eyes and ears to head off malicious email, everybody benefits.
Oh, I understand that. Where I work, we actually have to go through an annual security clearance on the computers. And it's probably about a 2-hour thing that we have to go through question and answers. And it's just a training film of what to look for, what the newest, latest, and greatest is on the way of phishing scams or worms or viruses.
Okay.
And I think that would be beneficial here. People can take it at their leisure. You click on each particular module, and as you finish it, it does track it, and it goes into their permanent employee record that they've gone through this kind of a training. And I would think that when new employees come in, that this would be beneficial to them also. So everybody is trained in that kind of benefit. Do we have that? Do you have anything like that?
We subscribe to a number of different services, not the city, but my company, BPI Information Systems. So, for example, CBT Nuggets is a program that we subscribe to, and it has multiple different training paths, everything from entry-level computer how-to high-end certifications from Microsoft and Cisco. They also probably have, I'll have to look it up, to see if there's security awareness training for end users. Now what I can do is I can look that up, review it to see how appropriate it would be for the staff here, and see how we might be able to disseminate that around the city. I'll have to work with HR to make sure that it can be rolled into, is it business hours that they do this? Is it something they take home and they do on their own time? So there's a lot of small logistical things we need to go through.
Well, at our office, we do it on the computers at the office, so it can verify that we did do it there, and it does track it. So I would think it'd be something that we would probably do on location. And like I said, they're in separate modules that are anywhere from 5 minutes to 8 minutes is what these were broken down to. So I would just think that it'd be
We can do it.
thank you.
We can do it.
Awesome. Okay. Be nice to see you. I'm all set. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else that you want to present?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes that we're approving this evening. The first one is a special city council meeting of April 17th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Any discussion on this set of meetings? Or this, yes?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As I called the city manager and the clerk today, I was talking to them, I believe it was page 15 under the cultural center.
Is that the, I
On the
think it's,
I'm sorry, that's
that's
on
the next one, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were doing them all at once.
No, just
Oh,
one,
Then
I think that's the appropriate way to do it.
Okay, I can wait.
Okay, anybody else? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those meetings are approved. The next one is the budget study session of April 18th, 2017. I think that's the one that you wanted to talk about. So,
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
sure.
It was page 15 of the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
that's okay, thank you, sir.
I'm new at this.
It was page 15, the Cultural Center, item 84-85 and 138. When we were talking about the additional $350,000 improvements to the Cultural Center, there was talk about when this would happen, we would more aggressively go out and try and lease the place, and that would be displacing the seniors as we were filling up the rentals of the center. And I didn't see that anywhere in here.
Yes, and that's correct. We had myself and Councilman Kennedy had a conversation about that today, and just to make it clear, the minutes should reflect that my statement is that when the community center was rented, there would be displacement of programming on the days that the rentals occurred, but not displacement in a wholesale fashion simply because we were renting the place out or making it available for rental.
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah, and because I think when we first had conversation about it, it was my understanding that that perhaps some people thought that we were gonna, in a wholesale fashion, stop all programming because we were gonna market it aggressively. That's not the case.
Okay, and with that clarification, does that make these?
That makes me happy. But
So, okay. Anybody else have any comments or? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are passed, approved. The next item on the agenda is the budget study session of April 19th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Okay, I have a motion. Any comments, questions, clarifications, ideas, complaints? All right. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passes. And then finally, we have the regular city council meeting of April 25th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion on these minutes? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next thing on the agenda is correspondence. We have three items under correspondence. The first is a notice of hearing before the Michigan Public Service Commission regarding Consumer Energy Company case number U-17771. The second item is a notice of hearing before the Michigan Public Service Commission regarding DTE Electric Company case number U-18251. The third is a notice of hearing before the Michigan Public Service Commission regarding DTE Electric Company case number U-18255. And there was a fourth which has been moved to new business. That takes us to the first call of the public. And I will read the rules for the call to the public. The public shall address council during a call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And then all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the council this evening on any agenda items? Seeing no rush to the podium, I'll close the public comment. Call to the public. City manager reports. First, we have the fire monthly report for March 2017. Anybody on council have any questions, comments? Mr. Beagle.
I've got two. I noticed that this year we have, in March we had 6 hazardous condition calls. What would those be?
I believe the majority of those were wires down, but that also includes trees over the road, fuel or natural gas leaks.
And then false fire alarm calls, that went up pretty significant. Do we have any, have you been going to the same spot multiple times, or?
Nothing's been repetitive, but we've had a lot of new occupancies or remodeling older businesses' occupancies, and it's kind of the testing process,
Okay.
unfortunately.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, the second report we have is the police report for the month of March 2017. Anybody have any points they want to make with the Director of Public Safety? Good job. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these issues unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passed. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. And we have one item under unfinished business, and that is the consideration of the enactment of an amendatory ordinance to the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances to amend Title 15, Building and Construction, and to repeal in their entirety, Chapters 8.04, 15.08, and 15.28, and to adopt a new ordinance regarding buildings and construction and provide penalties and violations thereof. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Okay, we talked about this last week, or last time we met, when we scheduled this to come to council, and we had a bit of and I understand this is changes in the state law and state codes, but perhaps you could come up, Dennis, and just kind of reiterate what it is that we're doing here.
Absolutely, thank you. Basically, this is a change. About every 3 years, the state of Michigan readopts a more current version of the construction code family. Includes building, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, property maintenance code, and electrical. This would put the adoption in line with the state, which actually took effect in April 20th. And this takes the same exact codes by reference and adopts them as a local ordinance, which makes it much easier for us to enforce on a local level.
Anybody have any? Mr. Kennedy.
I apologize, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. When it talks about penalties and fines, is there a standard? Because I see in the beginning it talks about like a $50 fine per violation of not less than 50 and not more than 500 for failures to comply. And then farther in the back it jumps up there where it talks about 200 to 500.
Correct.
And so
The other thing that this change also made is it took the family traditionally already occurred from a misdemeanor crime to a civil infraction. So what happens is, yes, there is a standard. The courts basically decide the actual fine, and it just gives them a set of parameters for them to follow.
So what we're doing is we're leaving it up to a judge to decide?
For the most part, yes. Yeah, we make recommendations quite regularly on these kind of cases if we have, and they're not regularly, probably is not the right word, we don't go to court a lot on our code of construction violations, but we do make recommendations to the city attorney at the time, what would be an appropriate fine, and quite frankly, for first offenders, it's minimal.
Okay, so there's no set stepping of violation dollars and stuff?
Not really.
It's just whatever
Yeah, within the parameters that are allowed by the ordinance, but yes, that's true.
But it's arbitrary?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir, I'm sorry, thank you.
Mr. Resnick?
Just a quick question, Mr. Smith. The geographic limits for storage of certain liquids and flammables and stuff like that, if that changes in the fire code every couple of years, if it does, do we actually go back to other business owners and make them aware of any new regulation that might be imposed by that? I know it's,
Yes.
it's limited to zoning, right?
Yeah. The code, yeah, the code covers a lot of areas of hazardous materials and storage of such things. Do we go back to other businesses? My answer would be probably not on a regular basis, because we would consider those businesses grandfathered into the previous ordinances. If something new were to come into play tomorrow, then they would be subject to the new ordinances. Geographically, we try to use the zoning ordinance as the model for geographic, so that we don't run into a situation where you have flammable liquids, hazardous materials, et cetera, being stored in a residential zoning district versus a commercial zoning district. Those are pretty much stay the same. Okay. Now, if the boundary change, master plan changes, then we might have to adjust accordingly. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Ziegler, might I comment just
Sure, please do.
relative to some a discussion that occurred between Councilman Kennedy and the building official, Mr. Smith. And that relates to the, about the amount of the fine, because there's an insertion for a minimum fine of $200 and a maximum fine of $500. And I think it's important for everybody to know, regardless of the fact that the ordinance states that the judge at the court is free to impose whatever fine he or she deems to be appropriate relative to the matter. And that if the building official were to make a recommendation that there should be a fine or there should be costs assessed, and that was outside of that range, and I mean less than 500 or less than 200, certainly the judge would be free to do that also. The other important thing is that one of the purposes of the new ordinance too will readjust it to be consistent with the code and to provide for a civil infraction penalty as opposed to a misdemeanor penalty, because there's no intention to arrest anyone for any type of building code violation. So I just want, I know that Councilman Kennedy had a concern a little bit about the fine, and I wanted to make it perfectly clear that that was some of the reasons why this was changed, and that the judge is always free to, in fact, impose a fine outside of the range. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything now that that's, okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now I'll go to new business. We had a short list. The first item on the under new business is a recommendation to accept the proposal and bid of PCT Inc. of Clinton Township, Michigan, to replace the all data and voice over IP cables in the City Hall for the amount of $35,774.35, and a companion budget amendment for this expense. Mr. Blackburn, I guess you're up again.
Need a motion there?
Need a motion?
Oh, yeah, that would.
So moved.
Support. Thanks.
Now can I start?
Please do.
Okay. This building needs to have the Ethernet cable replaced throughout. This cable supports all of our phones and all of our computer systems. Over the years, it's been added to and modified, and it is no longer within the specification to support the IEEE standard that we need. So earlier this year, the technology department, working with a number of other department heads, put together a request for proposal. We posted that on the website and on Mitten and a local newspaper. We got a very good response back from vendors. We received approximately a dozen sealed bids. We went through those very meticulously and scored them on items such as price, project management, quality of materials, understanding of the project, number of employees, location, and based on that scoring, the results of the qualified bidders are in the motion. What we would like to do is award this bid and have the work completed before the end of this fiscal year, so it coincides with the completion of the phone system that was approved at last council meeting. With that, I'd like to open it up for questions.
One of the questions is, I imagine you're upgrading what, Cat 6 throughout, voice and data?
Yes.
When you went through the bid package, were you judicious in deciding which areas would need wired data access? Because areas like this could be served greatly from a wireless access point, and no need to actually bring them into a room like this.
Yeah. What we started with was a very detailed analysis of the buildings and staffing levels. So we took blueprints from the police department and City Hall and looked at how those areas were being used, and if there was any chance that those would be changed in the future. Because it's easier to have an extra drop and less costly to put in than it is to pull an additional run later on without overbuilding the system significantly. So what we did, we took these blueprints, marked everything up, reviewed them with staff to verify they were accurate, and then made a consolidated map that was part of the bid document.
Good. Second question, it's stated in here that the fire station and DPW also suffer from the same issue. Will those be replaced in time to be able to use and utilize fully the capabilities of the VoIP system?
Yeah, they will. As a matter of fact, the changes that needed to be done at the fire station and DPW were so minor, we just took care of those as normal maintenance items. There were just a few changes to bring them up to the standard that was needed.
Okay, so they'll be concurrently done. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is consideration of the purchase of an additional voting tabulator and an accessible voting device from Hart Intercivic, Inc., and approval to waive the bid process, as this is a state of Michigan bid. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is this a clerk's issue? Would you like to address this?
Sure. The State of Michigan Bureau of Elections went out for bids for this, and they selected three companies to provide election equipment to everybody in the entire state. Oakland County then picked this Hart Intercivic, and the purchase price for the very good chance that somewhere down the line, not within the next year, but somewhere, we're gonna have to add another precinct. I thought this would be a good opportunity to purchase right at the get-go, because we do get a little bit of a reduced cost if we get the equipment with this, with the initial, implementation of the equipment.
Okay. Anything you want to add, City Manager?
You know, myself and the city clerk have had some discussion about this, and it really is, quite honestly, in my opinion, in the best interest of the city to purchase this equipment now, because when we've looked at the numbers, sadly, we figure that the numbers will increase where they'll have to open up another precinct. And Ms. Buck is correct, this is the time to buy this equipment now, because you're going to need it. As more people move in the community and you have more voters, you're going to have to open up another precinct. It's required by law. And I would say that the other, the cost of the other equipment has been, am I correct, Ms. Buck, has been paid for by the state? So you're not really paying for the other tabulators, you're just paying for the extra tabulators in anticipation of the fact that you're probably going to need it. I would guess that you might come to the conclusion that you would need it in a period of time where you might not be able to get it, perhaps, and it's probably better to have it since you know you're going to need it than to not have it. And it's going to be the standard for the state for probably, when did they change them the last time, Mrs. Buck? The tabulators, 10 years ago?
It was 2003.
2003, so we have them for 10 to 15 years every time we purchase them.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Smiley?
Thank you. On the idea of a fifth precinct, it's just a matter of when, not if. It may take longer than we think, or it may not. So, everybody wants to live in Wixon. All right.
This is the place to move to, Councilman Smiley. Everybody wants to come here.
Yeah.
And we're glad of it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is consideration of the approval to enter into the attached Oakland County Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, CISMA, Memorandum of Understanding. The appointment of Director of Public Works as representative and Public Works Foreman as alternate representative, and authorization for the Director of Public Works to submit letters of commitment for grant opportunities requiring matching funds of less than $3,000.
So moved.
Support. Okay. Mr. Sickman, you want to address this?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. We are looking at this cooperative as a potential stepping stone to help us with the invasive species, primarily Phragmites, which is starting to invade quite a few of our ditch lines. The trouble with this species is there's really no natural way of removing them, and the best solutions have been found with this cooperative. They offer some assistance with the pesticide management of these, and they also talk about controlled burns at some points to also assist with this. So there are a number of ways to eradicate these, and we're working with that group to help us with that. Another advantage that we see is also helping like homeowners associations with the potential. We could partner with them to help them remove some of the this Phragmites in their wetland areas, and we're looking forward to, I guess, assisting the county in this. So I'm open for questions if you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Resnick?
One
quick one here. In terms of homeowners, right?
Right.
And even commercial property owners, Phragmites has been planted as an ornamental too, correct? And
They
that's
are.
where the
They
problem
are.
lies,
And
right?
that's when it started. What we found was that these, especially in wet areas, they start to grow as tubers, go
Yeah.
underground, and once the tubers are in the ground, they'll
come out.
pop up just about anywhere.
So part of it might be public education, or maybe people don't buy those anymore, but.
That's the other assistance that they're helping with. The state does have grants that they're also offering, so we'll participate with that education, or participate with the county in that.
And I did witness one natural way to remove them. There was a lightning strike over by the Tollgate Education Center, and it burned a good half acre of Phragmites.
It's taking over the cattails as well as, in the natural areas. And because the root system is so tight, yeah, they're gonna plug up our storm sewers.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Tim. The next item on the agenda is a recommendation to remove the Colorado spruce trees at the front of City Hall due to disease and inability to control or to stop the infection. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Okay. Anybody have any comments, or Mr. Gotchel?
Thank you. What is the timeline for removal?
This week.
What is going to be done to make sure that the area is presentable for the upcoming board?
We already have made arrangements with the Historical Society, who will assist with a vendor in making sure that the entire area looks absolutely positively the best for the memorial ceremony.
Okay.
That will absolutely positively occur if City Council decides to remove the trees. And I might comment in this regard, I have watched these trees for some time, and I'm certainly not an arborist, but I have spruce trees of my own that I own, and when I looked at these trees, I originally thought that they suffered from a disease that's called needle cast, and it's a fungus that is easily transmitted from tree to tree. And I asked Mr. Sigma to obtain the services of a certified arborist to take a look if that was the case. Needle cast is actually a disease that can be easily treated. It takes about 3 years, but you can actually treat, and you can actually bring some of the trees back. That was not the case, though. It has this nasty cytospora canker and this pitch mass borer infection. And these trees simply do not recover from those types of diseases. And consequently, when the certified arborist, Mr. Cartwright, looked at these trees, he came to the conclusion that there was no value in trying to do anything else except remove those trees. So I discussed this with Mr. Sigma, and it's honestly my recommendation that the trees be removed immediately. And I think that it would be the city's intention to, after that occurred, to go back and look at the front of City Hall, perhaps in the months to come, and to decide what, in fact, might be appropriate plantings for the front of City Hall, and maybe we would balance off the west end of the face of the building with a tree similar to that you see on the east end of the building that the bird feeder hangs from. And that's a possibility, but we would come up with a number of recommendations and bring them back to City Council, get some input from City Council as to maybe what direction we would proceed. But I think for now, at least, it's the best to remove those trees and stumps and proceed from there. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Zickler.
Mr. Kennedy?
It was written down here that subsequently the trees were examined by Alan Cartwright of Romulus. The company Mr. Cartwright works for is in Romulus. Mr. Cartwright's a Wixom resident.
Yes, that's correct, and then that is incorrect in the report. He does not live in Romulus, the company he works for is in Romulus. You are correct, Mr. Kennedy.
So I just, you know, I mean, this is the guy that's, you know, got some. Well, and he's also, he's one of us, you know, he's ours.
Yeah.
So, you know, I thought maybe we could get the, city council guys out there with chainsaws. I thought we'd go at it.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I took a walk over by those trees today, actually, and I don't know that I want to get too close to it.
I don't think we carry much insurance for the building when we get
You
it.
don't want to catch sight of poor cankers.
Mr. President.
Just one question. Doesn't this fall within your discretionary spending anyway?
It does, but I have to say this, okay? These trees have been an institution in this community and are part of the edifice of this building. And honestly, yeah, I could have just had the trees cut down, but I didn't think it was an appropriate thing to do without bringing the matter to city council,
Okay.
because it's gonna change the whole appearance of the building, and I thought that it was the best and the appropriate thing to do, given that.
Thank you.
Right.
You don't want to get
Thank
yelled
you.
at, you want us to.
We don't
No,
want
I'm
any
kidding, I'm just kidding.
cytosporic cankers. All right.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks. All right, number 5 on the list here is discussion of the city manager and clerk annual review. Mr. Gatso.
No, thank you. I did discuss this with a few council members, but wanted to, given that we have a new city manager in a few weeks, and that we really haven't had a review of those two positions since I've been on council, that we kind of formalize the process and direct the city manager to create I guess, an administrative rule that we will be conducting the city manager and city clerk reviews to coincide with the second meeting of March for council. That way we know every year going forward when we're going to be doing the reviews. And then directing, or I guess working with our staffing consultants to develop a merit-based review system for those positions as well. So I wanted to have a discussion, and then I could give a formal motion as well.
I want to discuss it.
Yeah, I think, you know, we wanted to have Mr. Goodline's review, but he went and retired on us.
Beat
So-
you to it.
So yes, we used to do the review for the city manager prior to goal setting and the budget, the first budget session. So I think there's no problem getting back to that. I think after you know, Mr. Brown gets on board and you know, we sit down and we come up with a schedule.
Deputy Mayor Ziegler, if I might comment?
In a second, you can. I did have a discussion with Mr. Goschel about this, and you know, a couple things. One of the things, I know that the city manager's office has talked to Mr. Romberg, who does that work for us, and has already kind of gotten that ball rolling. And I don't have a problem with setting up a city manager evaluation on a date specific or time frame. One of the things that you and I talked about, Mr. Gatchel, was that and I indicated too that in my recollection, and I don't go back as far as some people, but I know that we have never, the council has never, since I've been on council, been involved in evaluating the clerk position, and I wouldn't be in favor of that. I think that traditionally the city manager has done that, and in the past when we did do a merit-based raises and evaluations and things like that, the city manager has been the one that has made the determination as to whether the city manager or the clerk is you know, has rated the clerk, and so I would be certainly opposed. I see you, Nancy. I see you shaking your head there. Let me ask you, because I would value that, but I know that maybe in the beginning, but I know for the last 20 years, there's not been an evaluation that I'm aware of the clerk. Can you add anything to that, or I'm asking you?
You're asking me?
Yeah. As sort of the historian in the room, you know?
Right, good, that sounds better than institution. Really. If memory serves me, the city clerk is the clerk of council, not of the city manager. It's a separate issue. So,
Yeah.
part of that says, I don't think it would serve the purpose to have the city manager doing a merit review of the city clerk, because she does not come under his auspices.
Yeah, you know,
It's the clerk, she's
yeah.
the clerk of the council.
Go
Okay,
ahead,
only
Mr. Goodler.
council can, okay, let's put it a different way. The city manager has the purview of perhaps relieving someone of their duties, but he could not do that.
That's true.
To the city clerk.
That's true.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think I think you should take a look at that.
Yeah,
But she's or the person sitting in that position is the clerk of the council, and so it's up to the council to do the review.
Well, I think my preference would be that the city manager do it. And this way we've done it the past 20 years. I know that Clarence is chomping at the bit here.
But do you see what the problem is?
Well.
Yes, I do, and I think I have a solution.
Spit it out.
I think I have a solution to that, and I think the solution would be this: that I agree with both of you. I would say though that the problem and difficulty with the city council reviewing the work of the city clerk is that the city council has no direct contact with the city clerk on a daily basis, and thereby has no ability really to evaluate her performance. Now, certainly you could make the same argument for the city manager, but the position of city manager is a bit different. What I would recommend is relative to this, and I say this because I know that probably 12 or more months ago there was a discussion on city council concerning examining the evaluation process for city manager and perhaps changing it from what had been done previously. I would recommend that you have Mr. Romberg put together an evaluation system for the city manager. I would then say and then present that to the Wage and Salary Committee, have the Wage and Salary Committee decide if they were going to recommend that come to City Council, and then move that to City Council, okay, in whatever form that would come out of that process. That's the way that we have done that in the past. And then I would say, insofar as the city clerk is concerned, I think that there needs to be a collaborative review between the city manager and the city council relative to the city clerk. And I think that would satisfy everybody's concerns and would satisfy, I think, some of the language in the charter that says that the city clerk works for the city council, okay? Regardless of the fact that the city manager gets to direct the work of the city clerk on a daily basis. And I think that could be easily accomplished, because what would happen is there would be a goal and objective setting between the city clerk and city manager, and then subsequently, a year later, there would be a review of the attainment of the goals and objectives that had been established about a year before that. The city manager would then complete a report relative to that, his impressions and conclusions. The report would be delivered to City Council, and then subsequently with a recommendation. And subsequently, the City Council will get to be able to review the report, question the city manager, maybe even question the city clerk if they chose to do so, and then could either approve or reject not only the recommendation, but the evaluation of the city clerk. And I think that satisfies, I think that would satisfy just about everybody, as well as satisfy language in the city charter that says that essentially the city clerk works for the city council.
It seems reasonable, I guess. And that's something that that Mr. Romberg is able to work out?
Oh, certainly. He can work.
Right.
There will be no problem in doing that.
Maybe that's the way to go in that. And I guess one of the things that I was hoping to do is really kind of, you know, your time is limited because of the end of the month is drawing near, and I don't want to put a lot more on your plate. And I know that the assistant city manager at this time is going to take over in a couple of weeks, and you know, I guess I don't want to burden you with a lot of work before you leave. And
I got nothing but time.
Is that right? Okay. Well, if you're comfortable with it, I am. I don't. Anything else you need to?
I can make a formal motion based on that if we want.
Yeah, I'm quick. I just, listening to the pros and cons of it, I thought City Manager Goodline's suggestion that it'd be a collaborative effort seemed like a good solution. Seemed like the way to do it because, well, for all the reasons you outlined. And just one note, just because we're being recorded, that was Nancy Dingleday who Deputy Mayor Ziegler addressed.
Yes.
And she was a longtime council person here, and that's why we asked for her expertise. And for those who want to come to meetings in the future, we don't usually ask questions at the time. So that's all, just a note. Thank you.
Just my comment.
Might I add just a little point? I applaud the idea presented by City Manager Goodline to review and perhaps present a rewrite of the procedure used to review the city manager position. Some of those things really, if they're still the same they have been for a lot of years,
Yeah.
I would strongly suggest checking and reviewing it.
Thanks.
Because
Yeah.
it just seems like it, well, it needs refreshing.
Mr. Resnick?
Yep, and I ditto that comment. But
Oh,
the,
do you ditto it?
The,
Thank you.
But, you know, one other comment too is that the charter states that the clerk serves at the pleasure of the city council, and I think if the city council so deems that the city manager is the more appropriate one to do the performance review because of daily contact, I think we could choose to do so. And I would support, coming up with a process, as Mr. Goodline suggested, that we presented with those review results and can comment on it, add to it, or whatever.
Mr. Smiley, you have something?
Yeah, and one more. So this is a question for Councilman Godgel. So is the proposal going to be to put forth or create a process to have these two reviews? Or is you going to try to put that in all right now?
The proposal would be to set the date annually for the review and then kind of give the direction to the city manager's office to work with Mr. Romberg's firm to develop those processes, and then we can, as he mentioned, send it to wage and salary or back to council and let them work it out since it's there.
They'll work out the process. We just want to set a date and set the idea. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You can make any proposal you want, but my suggestion would be to, I mean, we've kind of given, and I think we're all in agreement that with what Clarence said, and at least I am, and I would suggest that the direction has been given, and we really don't need a motion to do that. I think that we've kind of put that out there, and I think you've got the idea, right?
Yeah, I think, and honestly, what we can do is that we can do a simple administrative directive that not only talks about the process for both the city manager and the city clerk to be evaluated, but also incorporates into that the city manager will be evaluated at the second meeting in March. So I mean, if city council decides that they need a motion for that, that's fine. If they don't, we'll proceed regardless. It's just whatever your feeling is, and I guess honestly, however Councilman Gotcho is more comfortable.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think that, as I understand it, that Keenan Gotcho is just sitting there saying, let's set a set time for these evaluations. Anybody that has employees on an annual basis is what we do. And the procedure will be worked out through wage and salary and brought forward. I think that's an excellent idea. So that's my opinion on it.
I'd like to propose formally that City Council directs the city manager to create an administrative rule setting the annual review for the city manager and city clerk positions to coincide with the second regular city council meeting of each March, and to direct the city manager's office to work with our city staffing consulting firm to develop a merit-based review system for those two positions.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion?
If I can, through the chair, real quick,
Yes, please.
just to add something to that, for general information purposes, when these kind of things take place, reviews, I don't want to set the expectation that's going to necessarily be a public meeting. That's going to be subject to the choice of the employees to ask for that to be a closed session or not to be a closed session, just as a point of clarification. So,
That's
yeah.
my understanding as well.
I just wanted to make mention of that so there wasn't a misunderstanding later.
Yeah, and that'll be included in the administrative rule, or directive, I'm sorry.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
I have to indicate that I think that we've done enough to give direction to the administration to go ahead and work on this, and I would not favor and will not support this motion. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Councilmember Beagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Gotcho?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnick?
Yes.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ziegler?
No.
5 yes, 1 no.
Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is the memo that was pulled from correspondence. You want to, Mr. Gotcha, you want to describe the memo and then talk about it a little bit?
Sure.
What do you want to say?
The memo. Used to doing this by computer. Essentially, the memo was based on a discussion the city manager had with Wall Lake Schools regarding asking them to film additional meetings in the upcoming school year, as we had discussed in the budget study sessions. And essentially the feedback from the school district was that they didn't want to be responsible any longer for bringing the equipment to city chambers or taking it back. So transporting the equipment would become a city function. Storing it overnight in a secure spot would also become a city function, and then uploading the recording to social media and YouTube would not be something the school district would be doing in the future, or would prefer not to do in the future. So based on kind of that information, I thought it brought us back around to a discussion of how we wanted to go about things, and maybe direct the city manager to look at other alternatives, whether it's petitioning WOCA for funds to buy equipment, or looking at grant money, or how our PEG fees can be used, or basically how we can go about this to make sure that we're not adding a lot of undue burden, like transporting equipment back and forth and
Kennedy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had a conversation with Clarence Goodline today, and I thought you had suggested something I thought was pretty appropriate. Can you reiterate that, or?
Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't want to put
No,
words in your
go
mouth.
ahead, it's fine. Go ahead.
That right now, we're with the with the PEG funds, that our IT department could be involved with handling all this. And right now, if we took and saved the money over a couple of years, we could afford to buy the equipment, but our IT department could do this as part of their agreement.
Well, it wouldn't be, if I could just kind of jump in there.
That's why I was
It
trying to-
wouldn't be part of the current agreement. You'd have to amend the agreement to include this, and it's my expectation that they could do it. I think that what you'd have to do is you'd have to commit, though, to the purchase of the equipment, and you'd have to install your cameras, install your mic leads, and then create an interface to whatever storage device that you were going to utilize, and then perhaps insert a hardware interface to automatically convert the film footage to the format, well, to the formats that you need. So to upload to YouTube, for example, in social media, you typically need an MPEG format. I'm not sure what the format is for AT&T and Comcast, but the importance of making the film footage available to AT&T and Comcast is that, you know, in the considered opinion of our attorneys, relative to the use of PEG funds, you would have to have whatever, and I would say we discussed this last year in June, but you would have to make the filmings and the video available for viewing on public access. And that means that you're going to have to take the format and make sure that the format is compatible with whatever format both AT&T and Comcast use for the public access channel. I don't know what the format is, but we can certainly find that out. That may be an automatic process, or it may be a process that requires personnel to do that. The other thing is that you'd probably require some minor editing, maybe at the beginning of the filming and maybe at the end of the filming. There would be, if Comcast can take MPEG-4 and AT&T can take MPEG-4, well, then you only got to record into one format. If they can't, then you got to have two formats, and that may, in fact, require some work. If you do that and you end up with a format that you can give to AT&T and Comcast, then you can use PEG funds. If you end up with a format that you cannot give to AT&T and Comcast, then in the opinion of our attorneys, you cannot use PEG funds. Okay, regardless of the fact that you put it on YouTube or put it on Facebook or wherever you put it, okay? So there is the dilemma, okay, relative to that. You can expect the cost for the hardware and all that stuff that goes along with it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000 based upon the analysis we did last year. We don't have those numbers freshened up. We do expect, though, probably to have freshened up numbers by next Monday. If we do have the numbers by that time, I'll actually put that into a memorandum or a report and send it back to City Council, so City Council has that information. That, though, is kind of the state of where we're at. Now, during the conversation that I had with Councilman Kennedy earlier today, we actually discussed a number of things, and it was honestly similar to a conversation I also had with Councilman Gacho relative to PEG funds in general. And that was to consider perhaps good to go back to this withdrawal from WOCA again, to consider withdrawing from WOCA and then taking whatever PEG funds and devoting the PEG funds to our own IT staff to in fact perform this function, and to do some of the editing and some of the video format conversion that needed to be done, if in fact it could not be done automatically and simply with software and hardware. That certainly is possible, and we could explore how in fact to do that. It would be up to City Council, to proceed in that fashion if they, if there was interest in fact doing that. So I mean, there's a number of different ways and directions that you can proceed here. I think for that amount of money, if I remember correctly, we were able to put all the cameras and leads that we needed in this room. We can actually probably go to the ZBA room directly behind us and probably throw up a few cameras too if we were to need to do that. Why would we do that? It'd be easy then to tape the budget study sessions, if that was the decision of council. I think that City Council needs to consider all that. They need to consider we don't know how many views we have on public access. We know the number of views we have on YouTube. And I think you just got to put all that information together and then reach a decision as to how you want to proceed.
I'm so glad you didn't want me to say all that, because I never would remember it.
Well, I was hoping you were, but
That wasn't gonna happen. But with all that being said, this is something Novi does automatically, and Wolverine Lake even has one small camera at the back of the place, nowhere even near the quality of what they have here, and they put it out themselves also. And as I understand, PEG funds are for government access, and it's not a matter of how often we are viewed, it's a matter of it's what these fees are for. It's what our citizens are, it's a tax on our citizens with regards to their cable bills. Of course, everybody here already knows that. So I'm all for us having us look into something. If Walled Lake doesn't want to be able to assist us or feels that we are being a burden to them, that we should still move forward in trying to find some other venue in which to promote what the PEG funds are for. Thank you.
You mean the schools?
Walled Lake Schools, yes, sir. Thank you very much. No, yeah.
Anybody else? Mr. Smiley. Thank you. Going to some of the things Mr. Goodline said, I know Walled Lake Schools and WOCA President Tom Zoner came in here last year, and they were great at explaining the benefits and the purpose of WOCA, for those of us who didn't know everything. And they offered a solution, and it was great. It worked out. And I assume you're going to do this, but just to say it, let's talk to them again. Say, hey, we had a year of the Walled Lake school students here. I still like them. I'm sorry to see they might go, but we've got a lot of things we can work on, and this is a bump in the road with getting our show on TV, and I think we'll just keep working at it. There's been a lot of suggestions already tonight, and any one of them might be where to go. And then also, did Ms. Evola offer an explanation, or I never heard what?
no, Ms. Evola is who we had these discussions with, and simply put, she just said that they could not transport the equipment any longer, and that the equipment was being transported with private vehicles, some of which were in fact operated by the students, and that they would not use school district employees and vehicles to transport equipment, and that it was not possible to continue having the students transport the equipment in their own private vehicles, and then in that regard that we would be responsible for doing that if we wanted to continue. And there's not too much, there's really nowhere to go from there relative to where we're at, and consequently we just, we ended up the discussion, and then we brought the matter back to city council, that city council would be aware of just where we were, only because what we're gonna have to do is, I mean, it'll be a bit difficult to take the equipment and wrap it up and find someplace where we can secure it. We can certainly do that. But the more difficult part of it is that we're gonna have to transport it from the school here and then wrap it back up and transport it back. And it's not that as much as, it's not the transportation as much as it is, you know, we may not just have staff available to do that. And we'll have to scramble to get that done, and if we don't have a DPW person available to do that, then it will probably default to somewhere between the police department and the city manager's office to basically bring the equipment here and return the equipment. And it's not a matter of complaint, but certainly we all have a bunch of things that we have to get done on a daily basis, and it makes it difficult sometimes to get that stuff done if we have to go and get a vehicle to load the stuff up and then take it and bring it back. The cameras, as you see them, don't get transported here as you see them on the pedestals. Okay, they get transported in very large boxes to protect the cameras.
Sure.
And you know, so I mean, we'll have to make arrangements to do that, and it's just one more hurdle that we have, along with the extra fee that we're gonna have to pay in order to get the recordings done.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all.
I was more curious about, you know, what Ms. Avola had to say, and it hadn't occurred to me, that makes a lot of sense. That's a lot to put on the students to be bringing that equipment. It's expensive, sometimes we're here late, and I certainly don't want, you know, our police department to have to do it, so, thanks for the explanation, that's fine.
Mr. Resnick?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ziegler. I just want to make a comment that when our city manager sends us memorandums like this and they state that staff is working to find a solution, we'll report to city council soon, that we let them go through and do the investigations, the budgeting, and come back with a full report instead of piecemeal, you know, bits and pieces like this. So I was satisfied with City Manager Goodline's recommendation to put together a solution and report it to us.
Anything else? Mr. Beagle?
Maybe, do you think the reasoning behind all this is we haven't had the cake and ice cream at the last couple of meetings, and so they're kind of mad?
That might be.
Well, I think that is the reason, Mr. Beagle. No, just teasing, sorry.
Well, if this is our 8th, we've had cake at least twice, that's 20% of the,
This will,
25% of the time.
this is the, by the way, I can tell you, this is probably the appropriate place to do it. This is the last recording of Walled Lake TV for the school year.
Oh. Well, you're gonna miss cake maybe next time.
There'll be cake next time.
All right.
23rd, there's cake.
Anybody else? Well, I guess we've beaten that one. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the second call to the public. I read the rules earlier. If anybody needs a reminder, please raise your hand. Okay.
Nancy Dingleday, 2220 West Una. Interesting conversations, thank you, it was a great council meeting. My thought was, my memory says, don't we get a franchise from the cable companies? And don't I recall that revenue was sent to the school district for the very purpose of their television studio, correct?
Through
What I
WOCA.
understand, yeah.
Through WOCA.
Tank fees we were discussing.
And then we additionally get
And
something.
I really don't have the faintest idea what the number is, but it is kind of sizable. So the question becomes, if you are presenting this revenue to the school district, why do they suddenly not avail themselves of getting the machinery here? I understand that they don't want the students to carry it. I understand that. But I guess what is the benefit that the city receives by giving the cable franchise money to the school district?
I could briefly comment.
Yeah,
I promise it'll be brief.
Please do.
Okay. The whole idea was
5
that
minutes on YouTube, or?
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah. The clock's ticking, I know. I think initially when WOCA was established, the purpose was to take this money and to provide the basis for them to establish a broadcast studio and a broadcast program for students at the high school. And as part and parcel of that, the continuing funding of them with fees through WOCA was to, in fact, be able to provide them with fees that would support the learning and programming, as well as the updating of hardware and software for that purpose. And I haven't looked at the annual budget, but they have an annual budget, you know, that they, for money that they receive from WOCA, that goes for all of those purposes. And that has just continued since the establishment. I can't recall. I was afraid you were going to answer that question because I can't recall offhand.
It was a few years ago.
How long ago was it, Nancy?
Just a few years.
No, it was a number of years. It's probably 25 to, well, more than 25.
Exactly.
His owner, I think, said
Exactly.
early 80s when he was here.
Oh,
It's been many, it's been at least 25.
ooh, long time.
I read 83.
One at a time here.
Well, okay, you're close.
Yeah.
Okay, and?
Oh, and?
And?
And. The proclamation for the Ellsworths was outstanding. And I think they were very moved by the city proclaiming that day for them. And certainly Lori Dorchek mentioned that certainly we hope the council is able to spend a little bit of time with us on the 28th. I know it's a holiday weekend. But also to reach out to the community. And hopefully we have a good turnout, because certainly the young man deserves that tribute. So reach out and grab all your neighbors and tell them there'll be refreshments. But with that, thank you, and I know that, I know they were moved. It's been a long time coming. Now, as far as the trees going down, that's because Lori and I took a look and we gathered up clearance and went out, and because the DPW, the spruce trees had overgrown the monument. You couldn't see it. And so the DPW was told to, you know, trim them. And underneath was all this dead wood. And it just doesn't exactly fit with the ceremony. So, yeah, it really does need to be cleaned up, because you don't want it to detract from what it is that we're going to be doing. With that, thanks. It's been a great evening.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Good job. Good job.
You should watch it again on TV.
I
can watch it.
Oh, man.
That's part of it.
Thank you.
Yourself on TV.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else call to the public? Okay, second call to the public. Seeing no one, I'll close the second call to the public. Next item on the agenda is city manager's comments.
I have a few things here this evening. The first would be, I wanted to let City Council know that what we're doing is we're taking a look at, and this has been a matter of a discussion with various City Council people over the past year or so, and honestly, we've just been a little bit too busy to get to it. And we're gonna do a comprehensive, I guess maybe the best way to put it is analysis of where our sidewalk deficiencies are in the city. And we're gonna identify where in fact we have no sidewalks, where we should have sidewalks. And then we're gonna have HRC put a number to what it would cost to complete each sidewalk span. We're gonna go back and look at our fund balance and look at what our annual revenue is. And then we're gonna come back and get some feedback from City Council and try to establish priority and punch list for those sidewalks. And I wanted to just give you that information. I also wanted to tell you that today is City Clerk Kathy Buck's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
So,
What a way to spend your birthday.
if you would all please indulge me, okay? I think that there should be a round of happy birthday. So let me do that, okay? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday, dear Kathy. All together now. Happy birthday to you.
Did you get that?
Did Mayor Hinckley push you up to that?
No, he did not. The other thing is that I wanted to take an opportunity here to again thank the committee of staff who put much time, along with BPI, our IT consultants, who put much time into this analysis of the cabling needs here in the building, and the work that they did in analyzing and doing an analysis of the bids and putting together the report that you see and that came before you tonight. There was a lot of time spent on this, and actually we didn't send the photographs of the cable looms to City Council, but honestly they're disturbing. All right. And when you saw how the cables crossed one another and they weren't actually loomed, when you knew that the fact that the cables were unshielded and were actually laying on electrical leads, you get a good idea of why there was so much interference and problems in the network. And Caroline Shave, Stacy Banks from my office, okay, Mr. Blackburn from BPI, honestly worked tirelessly on this, along with the staff here in the building, Will, and did a lot of work on this. I mean, way outside of their normal duties and responsibilities, and they are to be commended. I wanted to also take a minute and tell you that I was pleased to learn from Mrs. Barker that at the 13th Annual Awards and Celebration of Michigan small businesses that occurred in Lansing, that 3 of the Wixom companies were recognized. Hosco Fittings was named Small Business Association Exporter of the Year. That's one of our businesses. Op Solutions received the Michigan Small Business Association Innovation Award. And Youngtronics, also of Wixom, was named one of the top 50 companies in Michigan to watch for development and expansion. And this was a similar award that was given to Op Solutions in 2013. I want to talk about this for a minute because it's important for you to know how Op Solutions arrived here as an example, and pretty much like these other companies. When Zimmerman decided that they were coming to Wixom, Zimmerman had a business business place in Novi in close proximity to Absolutions and talked to them about the fact that they are moving to Wixom. Suggested that they think about Wixom. Zimmerman then had conversation with Mrs. Barker. Mrs. Barker then called Absolution. Mrs. Barker met with Absolution and then took them around through the city and looking for buildings and found the building that they're in today. All three of these businesses are in Wixom because of the efforts of Mrs. Barker and staff and basically the work of herself and other people here in the city. And it's important that she be commended and the staff be commended for the hard work that they've done to bring new businesses to the community for the benefit of everyone. I wanted to also draw City Council's attention to the fact that the Michigan Airline Trail ribbon cutting ceremony will be on May 30th at 2 p.m. at Gunnar Metallic Park Pavilion. And we plan to have some light refreshments and a ribbon cutting event. And I would like to invite each of you, if you have the opportunity to attend, to please do so. And then lastly, I have a comment concerning the memorial and Marine Lance Corporal Justin Ellsworth. And I would say to City Council this. I would quote the biblical scripture of John 15, verse 13, that no greater love has any man than this, that they would lay down their life for their family, friends, or nation. And I would ask you to never forget Marine Lance Corporal Justin M. Ellsworth's heroism, self-sacrifice, and his commitment to honor duty and his great nation. And I would also ask you to never forget those responsible for his death. I want to thank you, Deputy Mayor Zick. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the council comments. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, thank you to Marine Lance Corporal Ellsworth and his family for their sacrifice for our country. It's unimaginable. I'd like to thank Lori Dorchek and Nancy Dingleday and the Wixom Historical Society for helping to bring this to our attention and making this known to everybody. Thank you very much. City Manager Goodline, thank you for taking a very proactive approach to the sidewalk issue and fleshing that out completely. It sounds like we'll have quite a comprehensive study on that and be able to get an idea of what we're looking at in the future, or what we want to do with that. It'll be all right there in front of us. And congratulations to Hospital Fittings, Absolutions, and Youngtronics on their awards. And again, thank you to all the city staff that have helped put this together tonight. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Beagle.
Thanks. Hey, before I get started, does the Assistant City Manager have any comments tonight?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I thought Mr. Goodline's comments were excellent and covered a lot of important information, especially reiterating our appreciation for the sacrifice of Lance Corporal Ellsworth and his family as well. So I have nothing to add. Thank you, all.
All right. And I just want to say thank you to the Wixom Historical Society for all their hard work and effort to make this memorial for Lance Corporal Justin Ellsworth become a reality. Thanks.
Mr. Gotcha.
I'd like to echo my fellow council members and the city manager's comments, thanking the Historical Society. I walked over to the memorial before Derby Day, partly to look at our pine trees that are going to be hacked down, and partly to look at the memorial. And it's a small memorial. Hopefully we'll be able to spruce it up once the spruce trees come down.
Yeah, we're going to power wash it.
And but we had World War I veteran on the memorial. It's very interesting to see. So thank you to the Historical Society. I did volunteer for the Derby Day, and it was pretty cold out. But I think once everybody got moving, they warmed up and had fun, or at least the endorphins got going, so they didn't realize they were cold.
Were they here? I didn't see them.
What?
The endorphins.
I did enjoy standing in traffic on Loon Lake Road, though, helping direct traffic and runners. And then just with regard to the video recording discussion, the reason I wanted to bring that out for some discussion, when I read the memo from the city manager, it seemed to me that the investigation or solution was more directed toward how we can transport the equipment or store it based on feedback rather than a broad look at all the potential alternatives. So that's why I wanted to bring it out for discussion more so than letting it sit, is that if we could kind of discuss as council and maybe everybody was on board with looking at what else is out there in terms of options, that we could go that route instead. So that's why I brought it out for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smiley?
Thank you, sir. In addition to everything that's been said, I'm used to going first, so this is,
Oh.
I don't want to like.
I could do that. That's fine.
Thank you to the Wixom Historical Society for what they've initiated. This is just fantastic. One thing having to do with that event that I want to add that hasn't been talked about is the Society is also conducting a greeting card campaign and is asking participants to drop cards of support and thanks to the Basket of Love located in the clerk's office. I think that's a great way, whether you can make it or not to the 28th, to let the Ellsworth family know how much we appreciate it. I wrote this thing, and I'm just gonna, one little piece is for Justin's bravery, dedication, and sacrifice to our country. We say thank you, and God bless him. Two other quick notes. Thank you to Wall Lake TV for the past year of recordings, the editing, the broadcasting, everything, getting our meetings up and viewable to the residents of Wixom. You guys did a great job. Thank you. And finally, it's Mother's Day Monday. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. I mean,
If you wait till
you
Monday,
know what I
you'll get
meant.
it.
Oh yeah, I'll be in trouble, yes. Sunday. I made the same mistake with my wife earlier this week. That's weird.
We've been married, not counting tomorrow.
Mr. Resnick?
All right, also want to thank you, Nancy, Lori, and the Historical Society for bringing that to our attention, and now, we can look proudly on that monument now as well, and it'll be viewable now for the passersby too. So thank you so much. Also, kudos to our economic development group, and I know Deb Barker's doing a great job of getting out there and spreading the message that Wixom is the place to live, work, and play. And so it's great to see the variety of companies that we're attracting to the city. So kudos to her. I will unfortunately be out of town at a wedding in California on Sunday, May 28th, but my heart will be there. What's that?
You come back.
Yeah, I'll come back. But I will put a card in the Basket of Love, and so they will be in our thoughts and our prayers, the entire family, during that dedication ceremony. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick. A couple of things, I guess, that I wanted to say. It was interesting, and I really appreciate the Historical Societies, especially Lori going up to Frankenmuth and seeing that up there, his name up on a plaque up there, and then come back here and there's nothing on the plaque. And I think, it kind of reminds me that a lot of those memorial type things just kind of, a lot of times they sit there for a long time and people walk by or drive by and they forget that it's there. And I when I got here this evening, I wanted to make sure that I was, I wanted to look at the trees and I wanted to look at the memorial, take a look at it. And so I got here a little early and I was walking around to there and I sort of had a flashback, and I mentioned it to a couple of people because I remember, as I was walking up there, I remembered, it was over 40 years ago that I was would be a policeman here in Wixom, and I'd be going on Memorial Day to my particular assignment that day, and it would be to go to that memorial, and the VFW would be there, and they would have a big ceremony and shoot their guns and 21 gun salute, which was very impressive, and there wasn't a big turnout, but there were some people there, and it looked at that time it looked good, so I kind of had a rude awakening when I walked up and took a close look at it, that it's really fallen and on bad times, especially with those trees. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. I'm really appreciative that the Historical Society took the lead on this, and I understand that Charlie Yan has done a lot with respect to getting people on board and working a lot of that, and of course Clarence is, in his office, has done a lot, and I really appreciate that. And I'm glad we're redoing that, and it's going to have a nice new setting. I think the carpeting looks great. Nobody's mentioned that, but I think it's really looking good, and really appreciate the walking in there. And I was watching that you didn't spill your water when you were pouring water early. You did? Okay.
Yeah, it's Scotch guarded.
All right. And I had on my I had on my list here to wish Kathy a happy birthday, and I actually I knew that it was her birthday, and I texted her and I assured her that I would not embarrass her by singing happy birthday to her. But well, I did join.
No such guarantee for me.
Okay, all right. Anyway, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Good night.
Good night.
You guys handle the drainage.
Perfect.